Hey, Jason.
Nandaa.
Oh, sorry, you can hear me?
Yes.
Turn down the music a little bit. Long time, man.
Long time.
Like last time I saw you. Wow, it's been long. I think since Jerome, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing.
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
Yeah. So
Quite
actually,
a
we can
lot.
just do. So actually, we are live, huh? So I'm doing the countdown. The problem with this tool, there's no way to test the sound on the backstage. So, but I think I can hear you. Okay, can you try just say anything? Let's see.
How about now?
No, it's very clear, very clear. I think you have a very nice mic. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Nice. Let me see if Clement is gonna join in, but if not, we'll just kick off. We're always running out of time, and it looks like 1 hour is never enough, so we can just get going at the top of the hour.
Sawa.
So let me get the. Yeah, so if you're listening in, I've already seen one person on the stream. I know on LinkedIn a number of folks there. So welcome. Please, as I said, tell a friend to tell a friend. It's gonna be a nice conversation today. Yeah, folks on LinkedIn, really awesome. I see you. 13 folks on LinkedIn, that's good stuff. I don't know if I'm included there, but that's what I see here, so that's nice. Yeah, so Jason, there is on one side, I don't know from your view, where do you see the comments and all that, private and the public ones? Is it like on the right hand side or on the bottom?
They are on my right hand side.
Okay. It looks like the same as mine. So yeah, we'll be monitoring that, but don't worry about the comments. So we'll be picking them up as we go. I think there will be a section to take some questions from the audience. Yeah, and then today my producer is not here, but normally she will send some chats, maybe in the private chat, maybe if we need anything. But let me see, maybe she'll join in. But today is going to be an interesting one. So I guess we're almost there. So welcome, guys. So already, as I always say, once you have one person on the stream, that's quorum for me. So and even if you don't have anyone, we can just chat with Jason. but thanks so much for joining in. I see like two folks on YouTube and on LinkedIn, more than 13 folks. I see the tribe. John, welcome. Actually, we're 18 on LinkedIn. That's good. Great. Let me start this. All right. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming. And first of all, thanks to Jason for making it. And it's been a time of waiting, but I'm glad it worked out. You got some time and to join us today. So that's awesome. I like that. So I really appreciate you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you.
Yeah, just looking forward to some wonderful conversations. Yeah, let me just turn down this music to I didn't have my producer around. But shout out to her. She's always helping us with all this like scheduling and setting up the sound and everything. Producer is called Maryann. So big shout out. You never see her on the screen here, but she does stuff in the background. Yeah, so quick introductions as always. I said this section will, at one point it will end. I'll never be saying this section that I'm about to say. That please head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. I just say that once you get us to 1024, that is one kilobyte. Then I'll never ask you for subscriptions again. If you hear me asking, please just correct me and say you promise. So we are almost at 540. So yeah, once we have good subscribers, it means we can be able to reach more people. And we just want to keep this channel very easy going, and we're not here out to like try and make money or something like that. So I guess you're not here. Okay, let me not promise a lot of things, but my aim is never to like in the middle of a conversation, then I bring up like, oh guys, we are being supported by this company, talk about this product. I'm hoping I will not get there, but you never know. But that's my aim, okay? So yeah, okay, so I always forget to introduce myself. So I'm Anthony Nandaa. I'm one of the hosts on this channel. I have my co-host Habinshuti. He didn't make it today. I think he was doing some runs on call. But he's with us in the spirit. Yeah, and on to and of course my producer Maryann Gitonga. Shout out to her. So thanks so much for all of you on the call on this stream on LinkedIn and on YouTube. You're so much welcome. I'm looking forward to having a very nice conversation with our guest Jason, and there's always a section for you to ask questions. So you can always use the chat window or whatever you are on LinkedIn or on YouTube. We're always looking at those chats and questions. So whatever comments, chats, questions, please shoot them our way. Try and stay on topic. I think last time we had someone asking about so many things about how is the interview process at Microsoft? Where do you guys work and all that? So if you can stay on topic, would be nice. But other things like those, feel free to ask any one of us. Always on email. We have we'll share also our contacts, but our emails are also on our website there at board.black. Always feel free to reach out if you have any questions around anything that you don't have to speak in public. So that would be nice. Okay, good. So on to my guest. So our guest today is Jason Rogena. And I've known Jason a little bit in campus, but we never got actually to work together on any stuff. But it's so bad that maybe one day we'll get to work on something together. And now that we're on the same community, the PTC community, I guess it's a good time. Yeah, so Rogena is a good friend of mine. So we know from campus, so it's going more than at least 10 years, at least knowing each other, following his works. I used to hear about your involvement with the the Linux, is it called?
There's a Nairobi Linux user group.
LUG, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Nairobi Linux user group.
Mm-hmm.
Was a big member there before he relocated to Ireland. But he's calling in from Ireland, by the way. So we are, in some way, we are now international. so that's nice. So Jason, welcome. We'll just start off by you introducing yourself, like just basics on who you are, what you do, and then you can move on from there.
Right. Thanks, Nandaa. Definitely excited for this conversation. Yes. So, short introduction about myself. Jason. I am currently a production engineer at Meta. I've been here 2 years and a few months. Previously, I was a site reliability engineer at in a company called Honor in Nairobi. But I was actually employed as a software engineer to Honor, and then gradually moved to site reliability engineering. And before that, I was really mostly a software engineer who dabbed in Linux in systems for mostly as a hobby or just based on interest. But I was lucky enough that I could transition from software engineer to site reliability engineering and production engineering. Yeah, and really mostly focused previously on Android and yes, Android, and I used to do the boring stuff, Android and PHP. I was very simple guy. I tried to look for cool things that I was doing.
Okay.
But very simple.
Yeah. Nice. And by the way, before we go to your story, I wanted actually to touch a little bit on your background. You are at UN. Yes. And you're among the very few folks that I know, like you had actually a first class, right?
Yes, I did. I did have a first class. It's interesting. During in work, and maybe that's a good thing about our industry, right? Where we are it is very focused on your portfolio and what you can show that you're doing. So you really rarely have to other what do you call them? Professions have to I was best in my class. Yeah. So yes, I did. I was lucky to get a first class in uni, and really mostly focused on the project I did, which I believe was the reason why I ended up getting the first class. But yeah, I was at
because I was saying, like, very few folks like that I know, like most people I know who end up like really getting first classes and all that, they on their practical side they're usually lacking, because at least in our education system and actually we'll have another session. I'm trying to put up some guys to just come and talk about our education system, the good and the bad, because I know it's not, we cannot throw like they say the bathwater and the baby together. Like we cannot just say like, hey folks, just leave, don't go to university and all that. So I'm always keen to see that balance, and you're among the very few folks that really struck the balance where you are really good with practical stuff, and still you manage to actually hack it in class. Myself, I went one way. I started off well. First 2 years were very well. I was like those top students, and then I veered off to industry stuff. So I'm always like curious to know, like, how did you hack this? So that's really awesome, and I guess we'll have some good time maybe later on to just talk about it. And I'm sure you have views on what can be changed, like to make it better for everyone. in the education system. So I'd like to hear your views sometime later on in another session. Yeah. So, but on to today. So maybe just walk me through like that journey. You tried to talk a little bit about it, but your journey to SRE, like how was it like from first to computing? How did you start this? Like when was your first like hello world and all that?
Yeah. I again very boring. I am not necessarily you'll find out not necessarily I'm very boring in that sense. Well, my history with computing really started after high school. I really never thought I was going to be within the computing industry, but it was really after high school where I had known that I'd likely be in STEM, right? And maybe just because of like family and having kind of mentors within the family that were in STEM. So I kind of knew. The more obvious place for me was somewhere in mechanical engineering or electrical engineering is where I kind of knew I was like, I'd go. But right after high school, we were fortunate enough that my mother got a computer for the house. And this was, I think, for a different purpose where she, I believe, wanted to write a thesis and needed a computer. So she bought one, but it didn't come with it didn't come with any operating system. It didn't come with an operating system that I knew of. It didn't come with Windows because it was one of the cheaper ones that were being sold at the time, and it came with an Ubuntu CD. It was maybe Ubuntu. I want to say 604. Yeah, I can't remember the version. It was on Ubuntu CD.
Before they started doing the years.
Yes, and really that in itself was having, because I was the son responsible for setting everything up. Was like I booted the live CD and saw this shiny new operating system. I had never heard of Linux. I only knew about Windows and just started tinkering inside, really trying to run commands and kind of going to cybers and seeing what cool things I can do with this new operating system, what it even meant, right? Why not Windows and all that? So really that's where my curiosity started, right? And I ended up realizing that, hey, let me try computer science, and signed up for computer science. Was lucky enough that I went through the parallel program, mainly because my parent was working for the university. We weren't necessarily floating in money. That's how I ended up in computer science, really. That was really my background. And joining the program, I really went in with an open mind. I wasn't necessarily sure whether I would do programming. I wasn't sure whether I'd do systems. I went in with a very open mind. I was like, hey, I'm just a tinkerer here, and this course seems to be enabling me to tinker with things. But well, within the first maybe few months, I kind of knew what I wanted to be. I really liked programming, turned out. But I was also decent at systems, right? Where Linux and maybe having to deal with operating systems wasn't necessarily, I didn't find it hard or challenging, but I found it very exciting because it was kind of helping with this tinkerer urge that I had all the time. But I was like, I'd probably be a programmer because I enjoy it, and that seems to be where industry was going, was programming. So I was like, okay, fine, programming. Yeah, that's really mostly the background. So very boring. It wasn't.
I don't know. That's not boring at all. It's interesting. Like it always starts with that something like out of the box, like for many people who don't know like the context of those back years, these days if someone says like I found an Ubuntu CD like and I was excited, you might just wonder like what are you talking about? But those days like those things really mattered, like, and I'm sure they actually maybe even right now where you are, we can trace it back to that first tinkering with Linux, and now I'm sure you with the production engineering, you're dealing with a lot of Linux stuff. So but is it Linux or Linux? You guys, you're the guys
who but Linux.
Okay. Nice. And so, by the way, you talked about systems, then programming, and another field that is really emerging is like AI, machine learning stuff. Do you think, you remember around fourth year, end of third year, we were trying to do like specializations? Do you think there should be like a specialization for systems, like where you can maybe go a little bit deeper into systems as opposed to just, I remember the only stuff we did maybe in second year, we did some operating systems with Professor Mwenga and what else? But do you think there should be like maybe a specialization for a few folks who know like that's the area they would like to go?
I definitely agree. I feel like that is a gap, especially maybe I can speak for the University of Nairobi curriculum, but yes, there seems to have been, now that I'm in the industry, that there was a gap within our especially systems work. I honestly very much enjoyed the distributed systems courses that we had in uni, and that within fourth year and third year, and enjoyed the operating systems. But the one thing I was gonna mention before is, and maybe why I did it, I don't feel like I excelled really in academics. In one of the subjects I really, and which was an irony to me, that I struggled with was operating systems in second year, where I just because of how I learned things, I wasn't necessarily excelling in that course because it was a lot of theory, a lot of I don't want to say cramming, but a lot of logic that you needed to kind of keep in mind, because this was the first time where you're like kind of diving into things like virtual memory and like processors and like registers, and it was like really deep stuff. And just because of how I was learning stuff, because just because I'm a tinkerer means that I'm a tactile learner. I was remembering those things. I was like, I can't, but ask me to like provision a Linux machine, I would, ask me what part of virtual memory stores code. I didn't know, like I was so I feel like the gap in the curriculum was, yes, we really needed a specialization in systems that would give people the opportunity to have practical experience in operating systems for people who are more tactile learners than the lucky ones who can take a book and read it on a stick.
Yeah, that's true. And I know it's a big complex thing because it needs like also the lecturers to be equipped to have like but I think there's another world where we can actually hack this without even the lecturer having to know. Like both of you can do like inquiry together, like the lecturer, you could just have a problem, like you go into the can actually look like patch, like one of your assignments could just be to patch a Linux kernel. So through that, whatever, go YouTube, whatever, do whatever thing, and then come and present in class. The lecturer doesn't have to know those kind of things, but also it can be a very good way of like teaching those things. Okay, I'm actually involved with the university a little bit sometimes, so we always discuss it with the folks there, and I hope like one day we'll be able to maybe come up with a solution.
It's definitely a brilliant idea, and I would say the courses where I had the opportunity to tinker with something, even if I wasn't necessarily good. I knew that I wasn't going to go into that particular field, were the most exciting for me. So for instance, databases, we had a lot of practical stuff in databases I really enjoyed. And surprisingly, security. I remember one of the very famous assignments was to GPG sign an assignment and then
email it, right?
Email it to the director, and he would decrypt it with his private key. I was like, that was some very exciting stuff for me. Like I knew I wasn't gonna focus on security, for instance, because well, I just didn't have a too good of an interest in security, but those things stuck, you know, like GPG, like having like a what do you call it? This kind of registry of public keys, and it being hosted within like educational institutions like MIT and all that. That stuff was very exciting to me, you know, and it's something that instilled in me like this basics, you know, where you just because of the learning and being tactile, being able to understand the basics of now other things we used within industry that might be abstracted from us, but are still like the low level stuff that end up running the entire infrastructure. Yeah.
Nice. Now let's go to SRE, production engineering. So I think where you work, you folks call it production engineering. Maybe would you like give us, maybe is it the same or is there some distinction?
It's I would say it's a gray area where maybe the biggest difference is the origin of the name of the role, right? Where site reliability engineering has origins at Google, and production engineering has origins at previously Facebook. So it's really mostly, I'd say, origins, but there is in both roles, you are basically an engineer who is responsible for the site's performance, reliability, and scalability, right? But there is very strong emphasis on using programming as a way of kind of doing these operational tasks or doing these operations that you would have manually done. So you kind of look, typically, well, I used to say a site reliability engineer is a software engineer that you gave a systems job, and you told them to manage them, and they were like, I'm lazy, I don't want to do it myself, I'm gonna write programs to do it for me. So that's really how I'd like to look at it. Yeah.
But no one has ever broken it down to me like that way. I think it now makes perfect sense. Like even now makes perfect sense even while we talk about infrastructure as code. Like that must have been a software engineer thinking like, we can make this thing like all that, like it now makes sense to me. Yeah, it's not just like someone saying like I want engineers who can also do this stuff, but it's sort of that way that you can make it repeatable and replicable anytime, and all that kind of stuff. So nice. And for someone like I know this my audience normally is a mixture of so many folks who are like mid in career, early in career, and also folks already like advanced in their careers, but they might not even want to sort of switch. But as you do one thing for long and you just get bored and you just want to try out something new. And it sounds like production engineering for me, like from what I've seen so far, like myself, I'm involved with system programming, like at least the containers and stuff. But I feel like I wouldn't mind like such a role, but I want to hear like what do you think are the building blocks, like someone that needs to switch over to such a role, like what they need to do?
I look at it in two ways. One is motivation, but also on the other end, technical kind of a background technical basics that you need. In under motivation, really, it's trying to understand, hey, what exactly as a person will I be gaining from coming into this role, right? It doesn't need to be philosophical. It could be, I just need more money, for instance. It shouldn't be, yeah. So that's really on that end. But on the technical end, since there is strong focus on kind of automation, right? Not letting go of your software engineering basics, right? So keeping on the whole like software engineering best practices, etc. Not letting go of that, right? And the other things that come in will then be kind of ancillary, right? Where it's going to add into your software engineering kind of basics. Within the systems side of this whole technical things that you need as your building blocks, of course, the first thing is on trying to ramp up on your basic understanding of operating systems, right? So, for instance, how operating systems work, how memory is managed, etc. So, basics within operating systems is quite important, right? But you will find that also nowadays a lot of things have been abstracted above the operating system with like all these orchestrating platforms like Kubernetes, etc., and Docker, all this fancy cool stuff. The other kind of area that I find very useful is understanding distributed systems, right? Which kind of helps with this level of abstraction that has been done on top of operating systems. So understand distributed system concepts like consensus, fault tolerance, availability, how consistency is maintained. That really are the things I feel like are the really basics of all this. Programming, just keep sure that you continue being a good programmer if you're coming from the programming side. If you're coming from maybe a networking background, systems background, trying to ramp up on the programming knowledge, and systems being like operating systems focused, right? It doesn't have to be Linux, it could be Windows, right? And also now distributed systems, which now is more of like an emerging area within systems that is quite critical in most, I would say, SRE roles, even in the smaller companies, right? It doesn't need to be like in like a large company. Smaller companies these days are working with a lot of distributed systems, right? Containerization and all this Kubernetes world, but also thinking about distributed systems as having a set of services that are talking to each other within this company, right? That all form this larger distributed system. Yeah.
I love that breakdown. Like, it's not a list of like 10 things, just 3 things. I like it. But I know all those have depth in them. But I like the way you've like put it so easy, like for anyone. So folks out there, like if you're looking into such roles, there you go. So it just needs you to go back to some of your notes and books that you did in campus, like look into operating system stuff and all that. Yeah, distributed systems. Yeah.
And maybe something I can add, maybe because I'm passionate, I don't want to say it, but it's something that I'm constantly surprised about is understanding how, and this is on the personal level, not on the technical level, understand how you learn, how as a person you are efficient at learning. Not trying to copy how other people learn, but just understanding yourself, how, especially coming from the Kenyan system where we are forced to all learn in a specific way, coming out of that particular shell and understanding, hey, are books really something for me, for instance? Or am I somebody who just wants to deep dive and like dissect something and like break and learn from breaking things? Am I somebody who learns by being around other people, right? And listening to them? Am I somebody who learns by talking about what I know, right? Just understanding how you learn, and that using that as help for these technical things that you're trying to ramp up on. I just wanted to put that there because
that's really like maybe even if there was a takeaway for me myself, like from a conversation like that one, like thanks so much for dropping it in, because I've never actually come to think about it like deeply. And recently I heard of this term called metacognition, like thinking about thinking. It looks like this is what you need to like get out of yourself and sort of observe yourself. like how do I really learn? Like I even myself have been now making me to reflect, like let me come back to the conversation. Yeah, so now this other thing is normally when people see people doing maybe, let's say, quote unquote great things, you think that there is a secret source. Maybe you want to hear something new, right? But at the end of the day, it usually ends up to very basic things that maybe even you've heard them, you know them. But and I don't want to preempt what you're gonna say, but I'll just know that people will just say like, oh, I didn't know it's just that. But just tell us, like, how do you stay on top of your game? Like some of the things already I know you've already mentioned, like in this conversation, but the basics of just getting staying sharp. And the industry changes so fast, things like really still keep moving. So for you to be able to stay grounded, what do you do? And also that versus the noise that always comes, like I know like right now there's this craze about LLMs and all that. In the world of, or like in your world, your folks may be powering those things, not really like not like in your world. What's happening like in your world when you hear crazy like things like LLMs coming in and stuff that is like you might want to jump onto the wagon, or just saying, okay, this train will leave me. But how do you do like with all that?
I understand that. I also get that fear of missing out sometimes, where I'm like, oh my god, there's this new buzzword, and I'm like, I don't know it, or am I missing out? But how do I keep in touch, or how do I keep being the best at it? I find, well, I'll come to the buzzword part. Let me see if I can dissect this bit on keeping being top of my game. I feel like we all work at the end of the day in a system that involves humans. It's you're never working particularly in a system where it's just machines. You're on machines, right? So just that means that you need to be able to learn from others, right? I feel like as engineers, being able to, for lack of a better word, swallow your pride, actually listen from somebody else is a very key bit about staying relevant, right? You will always find somebody. You will always find you don't know something, right? And of course, couple that with try never to be the smartest person in the room. Right, so I try follow that as my first principle. Of course, it comes with other things. Being able to swallow your pride and saying that, hey, I don't know this, or hey, I need help here, comes with a lot of things. Right? It comes with baggage, like dealing with imposter syndrome, and having to, especially as you grow up the ranks, being able to still maintain credibility, right, within the your team, right? Where when you say, hey, I don't know this, and I don't know how to do this, and you're in a team where everybody is like looking up to you, might be detrimental to how people perceive you. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that learning from other people does come with its own baggage that you have to do. But it's, at least for me, has been something that has been key in how I learn and kept being relevant. The other thing is what I touched upon is learning how you learn, right? Understanding how you learn things and leveraging on that. The other thing is on how I've stayed relevant is, at least now, if going back to technical world, is keeping touch with the high signal kind of sources that you already had for information. So for instance, I keep in touch with like the Linux community and see, hey, what's happening now, at least in Nairobi, etc. These other communities that you can join as a person that at least can help you keep in touch with that particular industry. It doesn't necessarily have to be in person or with people that you have to show face. Communities that are on, I know the cool kids now use Discord, IRC, it could be mailing lists. Being in mailing lists, I feel like there is a wealth of knowledge. There is a wealth of knowledge in mailing lists, and just like lacking in a mailing list doesn't necessarily have to be about a complicated subject. It could be as simple as this is just a mailing list on Laravel, for instance. I'm not necessarily saying Laravel is not complicated. I'm saying the kernel subsystem for networking. The mailing list. It doesn't have to be something complicated, but as long as you can find a way of getting a high signal source from other people that you can use to learn from. Something that I found very very powerful for me now, as I learn how I learn, is reading. So not being afraid to kind of, even if for instance I am a tactical or I am somebody who learns by doing something, but I realize that you end up thrashing a lot when you do it that way, right? Where you end up made a mistake here, or I went there on, that's not necessarily core principles, and you end up doing a lot of thrashing around. What I've learned works for me is trying to initially make, at least the first, when I'm trying to learn something new or a new concept has come, trying to just like peruse through some documentation about it, right? Doesn't necessarily to be, not for the aim of having the information stick, but for the aim for me to get some sort of pointers on what the core kind of principles for this new concept are, right? So going through a wiki page or going through a book, perusing through it, and then that's when I, after that, try and hone on how I learn, which is trying to be tactile with it and let my learning by doing take over and make now the knowledge stick. But that's basically how I personally feel like I relevant. I don't know if there is anything else I'm forgetting, but yeah.
No, that sounds awesome. Yeah, as I was saying, like I didn't want to preempt, but at the end of the day, it usually ends up just to the one line that you have to put in the work. All these things that you've mentioned are like you're putting in the work. So there's no like shortcut to. Let me not use the word greatness, but let me say importance to greatness. But the stuff that you do, like, because I always believe that every level there is there's someone looking up to you. Like I'm sure at your level, there's so many people you're looking up to.
Yes.
And when you meet folks telling you that, hey man, I like what you're doing, don't think that they're just saying, but it's the truth. Like it's a ladder, like all of us just climbing the ladder. So it's really awesome to hear those tips. And by there, I'd like to open up for, like you, as I said, on the chat, please feel free to ask any questions. It's now on your turn, like it's a mic toss on you. If you have any questions for Jason or anything that comment on anything that they mentioned, please do before. Don't start asking at 55 when we are closing. Yeah, now there's that bit of the hype on or something like FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. Like, what do you do?
What do I do? I breathe fast, but it depends. Like there's some. I go back to this whole learning through learning or learning how I learn things. If it's something that is a buzzword, I try and understand what is behind that buzzword. So for instance, the buzzword that I felt FOMO for the longest time was Kubernetes, where I was like, oh my God, we're not using Kubernetes within a company, and we're not using containers. So what I did is I got one of these free Kubernetes books online. I tried understanding what really is behind this Kubernetes, right? Why are people raving about Kubernetes? End up finding, it's an orchestration platform, does work with this and these technologies. You can do this with it, etc., etc. And then I ended up, after reading, tried to do something that isn't necessarily high impact and also not necessarily doesn't involve a lot of time, to just dip my toe in Kubernetes and then I'm realizing, it's really cool, and I can join the quote unquote bandwagon for and I guess it will work with other things like this large language models, like trying to understand, what is behind this large language models? Why do they look like magic? So going into some form of documentation to really understand what is behind these large language models and what can they do and what can't they do. And then with that knowledge, then doing something that is very throwaway. If you go on my GitHub, you'll find a lot of throwaway projects. My GitHub really all the projects. It doesn't have anything that is serious, because it's so small investments that I was trying to understand. Like, okay, there is this hypey new thing. How do I get involved? So the noise to me is the hypiness of it all, and just jumping into it. So how you kind of add more signal to this noise is try and understand what the is backing this hypey thing. You might end up finding that this hypey thing is just something that is hypey and not necessarily. It's basically hot air, right? Before you deep dive into this hot air and end up burning yourself, taking a step back. I know it might seem like it might be the long way around, but taking a bit of a step back, trying to understand what is behind this hypey thing, and then depending on how you learn, try and make it stick, or make it stick with you, right? And without even making a lot of investment, where you're like, oh, it's stuck, or oh, this is just hype, right? So that's about it.
Yeah, I like that. Nice. And a few more questions have come in, so I see actually our time. Because of time, I'll go over. I don't know if you can see them, but let me also show them on the screen. So Mohammed asks, hey Jason, what's your take on DevOps, and more specifically DevSecOps?
Yeah. DevOps. I mean, it's basically what started all this, right? Where before all this, before the world of site reliability engineering and production engineering and DevOps, there was basically just systems administration, and it was very manual and very walled, right? Where there was a lot of throwing things over the wall, right? Where you write, I'm a software engineer and I write code and I don't care about systems. I'm going to throw my software over the wall, and it's going to take a systems engineer a month to figure out how to deploy my code in a way that is reliable, right? In a way that it will run reliably. So DevOps kind of broke that, right? Where they're like, okay, basically what we want to do is reduce the kind of time to landing things in production by bringing development and operations as close together as possible, right? Then things got added in, right, where it's like, and now you end up having roles like SREs, etc. Well, DevSecOps is similar, I guess. I feel like it's also now bringing security into the fold, where, again, just like operations, security has always been this whole throwing things over the wall scenario, where, right, in organizations, and is trying to bring security closer to the fold, right, where it becomes a first-class citizen when it comes to the pipeline of deploying and maintaining, running services in production. So I love it. And if you want to venture into DevSecOps, and all power to you, and wishing you all the best. Yeah.
Nice. And John just gave a comment. John, sorry, our tool is just calling you a LinkedIn user, but he said knowing how to learn without copying other people's formula is a gem. Staying true innate drive is a gem. So like, I also resonated with him. That's awesome. And Anselmo Flavian, yes. So on your role as SRE, do you find yourself doing both DevOps tasks and also SRE tasks? By the way, maybe demystifying between. You mentioned a little bit in the beginning, but maybe just for folks, maybe we join later on. We just like talk about that thin line between DevOps and SRE.
Yeah. I mean, the whole concept of DevOps, from how I understand it, is bridging the gap between the dev, which is development, and operations, right? Basically, it's I normally think about it as just more of a way of doing things, right? It depends on how you implement DevOps, but yes, that's how I normally look at what DevOps is, right? Is basically bringing dev and operations closer together for the main purpose of bringing software to production reliably as fast as possible, right? Site reliability engineering and production engineering is really thinking about operations and how to do operations using code, right? So think about an operations task. For instance, I'd say maybe a DevOps task, which is, hey, I want to, a DevOps task would be maybe to, hey, run this Ansible playbook to deploy a service to production, right? And kind of site reliability engineering would be like, hey, how can I automate this process of deploying this service to production, right? And not necessarily just to the point where I'll be running a command, but beyond that, I'm thinking about, hey, how can I remove myself completely from this process, right? So how can I, for instance, have the service, once code lands, it's been reviewed, right? And has been approved, a pull request has been approved. If you're using, maybe, let's say GitHub, maybe that's a very GitHub-y way of saying it. And it was added into your main branch. Something kicked in and tested the code and how it was merged into your main branch. Another thing kicked in and packaged the software. Another thing kicked in and tried to deploy the software in like a staging environment. Another thing kicked in and checked how sane the software was in the staging environment. And then another thing kicked in and deployed it to production and rolled it into production, like one server after another, right? So I feel like both speak towards the same language. DevOps really is trying to bring operations and dev development closer together, rather than having things being thrown over the wall. And SRE and production engineering is more really leveraging on automation, right? So writing code for operations, right? So automating everything, or automating pragmatically, not necessarily everything. Automating operational tasks. Yeah.
Nice.
So do I find myself doing DevOps and SRE tasks? Yes, all the time, because they're all intertwined.
I see. So for a company, there's no way a company would have like DevOps engineers and also DevOps folks and also like SREs. Or it's possible to have.
I don't know. It depends. It depends on how you think about what DevOps is and what SRE is. But a company might be doing DevOps tasks, and those DevOps tasks are not being done by SREs, right? So, for instance, you might have DevOps tasks like deploying things to production that aren't being necessarily handled by site reliability engineers. Maybe the site reliability engineers might be responsible for maintaining the safe, reliable running of the services in production. But
is that maybe that what birthed this idea of even platform engineering and stuff like that, right?
But well, what I'd say is depends on how you interpret it. Again, I would rather focus on, rather than the terminology and the buzziness of what focus on what is behind all this, right? Where DevOps is trying to bring devs and operations closer. SRE is trying to use automation to automate operational tasks. Yeah.
I see. Nice. Sounds great. And we're almost right on time. But before we let you go, we always have some last questions that we ask. Quick questions, like as an SRE or production engineer, what are your top 5 tools like you'll never leave behind, your everyday carries?
Top 5 tools. Top 5. I have my notebook. I don't know if it's just a notebook. Maybe it's also, I don't know if it's like a personal knowledge. I don't know. It's something that has been very useful in my life. I use Obsidian for taking notes because I keep like a personal diary and like list of tasks I need to do, but I also keep notes on like things I'm trying to learn or processes I did in the past that were manual that I want to keep record of. So it's basically the first thing I normally open. Second thing is maybe VS Code, I'd say. I am basically on VS Code all day, every day. Vim has been good to me, so I won't leave Vim alone. I'll definitely want to give Vim a shout out, mainly because it's always there for me, right? Where whenever I want to do any text processing within like a server, it's always there with me. That's 3. 4, I want to maybe say Alfred, because I use it a lot during debugging. I think it's maybe a very macOS centric tool, but it's basically I don't know if I should call it a widget or it's basically a search tool within your computer that can do other things, right? So for instance, it can store your clipboard and you can search your clipboard very fast. You can use it to convert things very fast. So for instance, I normally deal with Unix timestamps a lot, so I have to do the conversion into like time I understand. So I have a macro there to help me do the conversion. So I'd say Alfred, and maybe shout out to Reader. I'm getting back to it's an RSS reader. I don't know if people still use RSS.
Oh, RSS, nice.
It's RSS. So I quick shout out to Reader because it has helped me remove a lot of the noise in my life in terms of going into just keeping track of things, that information that I want to consume, and removing everything else that I consider noise. So for instance, if I'm going on Twitter, I will see a lot of noise on Twitter, but if I a quote unquote RSS feed for specific people I'm very interested in following in Twitter, I can have that in Reader. And I have a feed for Hacker News and a feed for Linux Weekly News. I'd say Reader is the last thing I really enjoy. Yeah.
Good to, but it's, out of all those, like at least I've learned, like as long since I use an RSS reader, like ages. But by just for this like day and age of noise, I think it's really important. Maybe I'll consider it. I've never heard of Alfred. I'm gonna check it out. And I've been hearing about Obsidian, a lot of good things about Obsidian, but I've not been able to switch from. I use Notion. So
Notion,
I find it good. I like the Mac, and actually the things that I like about Notion are very basic things that that any other like notes and notebook stuff and note stuff will do. But I just fell in love with their simplicity and the UI and everything. But I've been hearing about Obsidian a lot. I think I saw something like also it does some mind mapping kind of stuff.
Yes,
maybe I need to.
Yeah,
maybe I need to check.
The thing that I really love about it the most is being able to link pieces of information. Yeah, so
I'm thinking maybe that's what we're gonna buy me into it actually, like because I like to know like how my because sometimes I end up having on Notion, I end up having a tree of just stuff and not necessarily that they are related in terms of parent-child, but they could just be like related but not really in parent-child kind of situation. But yeah, maybe I'm gonna check it out. Yeah. And by the way, talking of the RSS reader, do you think maybe there's anyone has worked on something that maybe is LLM powered that could just look at the things that you like and from all the like maybe 1 million of 100 things, maybe just give you a summary of maybe there is one.
That would be nice. Give you like a summary of your day and like this is what happened based on the feeds of things that you're interested in, and it would be awesome if it was local, like because the one of the powerful things about RSS and all this old technology is the emphasis on decentralizing a lot of things, right? Where you're like, hey, in the background, I'm just gonna download things, and then when you want to read them, just read them. They're gonna be there. You need to be online at that time. So I really love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Thanks so much. I guess we are right on time. Actually, over time, but to me, I thought we were going to break a record where we'll finish right on time, but we'll try next time. So, but hey, thanks so much. It always goes fast. I know we just did like a scratch on the surface of most things, but I'm sure most people have picked up some things. I like when I have a guest and also I learn something. I've learned a lot myself. So thanks so much for coming. And I know we'll keep chatting. Yeah, maybe before you go, we'll just have a quick chat, maybe on the if you have a few minutes on the backstage. Yeah. Before I let you go, is that okay?
All right. Yes.
All right.
Thank
you.
So,
guys, nice. Thanks, folks, and have a good night. Thanks for joining in. And remember to always, I hate saying this, but please subscribe, like, and share with the rest of your friends. This is really good stuff. Will help someone jumpstart their career or take them to another level. Okay. So thanks so much and have a good one.